America, my name is Osei-Frimpong. I come to you live. I'm just looking at the sound, making sure nothing's happening. Hey, can you hear me okay? I see some funny dial-ins on my dial-ins, and I want to make sure I'm not coming in too hot. Too hot for you. But I do come to you live every Thursday about this time, and for you. Oh, good. My sound is just fine. All right, so I do come to you live every Thursday about this time, and we're going to talk a little bit about Roe. Talk a little bit about how election frauds have consequences, because there's this famous saying that elections have consequences, and I'm telling you election frauds have consequences too. And we're also going to talk about the Amazon contract, because that is actually the most important kind of effort. Not just the union election, it's the Amazon contract. And I'll explain the logic of why that's the case a little bit later. All right, so the first thing, let's talk about Roe. Roe! All right, so something was leaked. It looks like they're going to finally turn back Roe v. Wade and then let the states pretty much, if you're in the South, ban abortion everywhere, because you know what? That's what the whites want to do. And I say the whites want to do because that's who's actually pushing this. Look, people try to make this about men and women, and men shouldn't tell women what to do, but this isn't a man thing. Like, Roe wouldn't be repealed if this isn't what white women want. But the American politics is about white women having being on both sides of the issue. They're the biggest voting bloc in the nation. When they are on both sides of the issue, that makes it a political issue. When they are on the both sides of abortion. If it were up to black people, like, it would just be pro-choice. Some people might not want you to have a choice, or some people might not want you to indulge in a choice. But black women are pro-abortion. Black men are the second largest pro-choice demographic in the nation, because, let's be honest, black men are not in the business of telling women what to do. Despite whatever you heard in your women's studies class, black men aren't we're not for that. We're not about that. That's just not us. So, there was a 15-week bill, the bill that they're talking about in the Supreme Court was originated in Mississippi. And in Mississippi, it was struck down by a black male judge. So, you had this white woman who proposed the bill, white guy governor who signed the bill, the old white lady governor signed the previous bill, but a white guy who signed the bill, and the bill was kicked down by a black guy. But black guys never get credit. But, a black guy, federal judge out of Mississippi is the guy who got rid of by the name of Clark something. He got rid of the bill in Mississippi. And that's the reason why it had to go up to the Supreme Court, and the law just didn't stay in Mississippi. So, black guys holding it down for, women to choose whether they have an abortion. And so we should not get paid for that. I'm pro-choice because, like I said, I'm not the huge fan of telling women what to do. I think the my body, my rules, or my body, my choice argument is a bad one, especially considering after 2 years are we just pretty much forcing people to get vaccinated. I think you should get vaccinated, but I think I should have some sort of say about what you do with your body, right? So it's not that big of a deal. And I think it's actually, that argument is the most gripping for a class of white women who's actually rather coddled to the physical labor it takes to actually do this nation. I took my first sports physical when I was in high school to play sports. I'm used to submitting my body to things, because it's not that's not how it works. My body, it should all go through a political process, but this idea that I should be able to choose whatever happens to my body. Who lives like that? If that were the case, no one would be plumber, where you put your bodies in feces all day, or a roofer where you're in heat all day. So, or pick things. So it's never going to be as simple as my body, my rule. What we could talk about is forced labor, and how forcing someone to bring a baby to term is forced labor, literally labor. And we're against forced labor. Or you could talk about how it's functionally criminalizing the poor. And what do you mean? I mean, it's functionally criminalizing the poor. Well, what happens is the rich women are going to get their abortions when they want to get their abortions. They're going to fly to wherever they need to fly to get them. And so what you're really instituting is a poor tax. A poor tax for the women who can't, take off work and hop on a plane and go and get their abortion and come back, right? So it's kind of like prohibition. What you're doing is actually instituting, disproportionately punishing poor people. And prohibition sucks. It creates criminals, and we don't want to create criminals out of people whose only crime is they didn't have enough money to fly to California to get an abortion, right? So that's a good argument. I think actually the most interesting argument you're not going to hear, because nobody actually talks in terms of family, is that it's forced family. You're forcing an immediate relationship. You're forcing an immediate responsibility onto someone. And that is huge, right? The same reason that you don't want your significant other to give you a pet for your anniversary, because they give you a pet, but you have to take care of the pet. You don't want to have to do that. Imagine that sort of antipathy times 10,000. And that's what it's like to force someone to have a kid. And you can say you can alienate that immediate connection you have with your child by adoption agencies, so that's not that big of a deal. But that's kind of a lazy solution to the problem of forcing someone to have a family member that they then have to take care of because they can't help but love them, right? So you're forcing family, and that is a form of, it would be the equivalent of a forced marriage. And we don't do that here, right? So we don't force people to get married. We don't force people to have families. And we don't force people to have kids. So I think the forced family argument is actually a better one. But you'd actually have to have a robust, better as in there's more logical sense than but you'd have to have a better family discourse about the quality of freedoms and responsibilities that come with family membership. And I think there are peculiar ones that we should talk about, but the liberals want to talk in terms of my body, my rules. And honestly, I think it's just a power grab for elite women anyway, because they don't give a damn about poor. If they wanted poor women to have more choice, they wouldn't say it's a anti-poverty measure. And what do I mean that they wouldn't say it's an anti-poverty measure? Here's a study I saw. It turns out that financial hardship accounts for the over 50% of abortions. Over 50% of abortions happen because of financial hardship. And that is barbaric. We are barbarians, if that's the case. Because that's not about choice. That's you're just coerced by your circumstances. You're too poor to have a child or a second child, because most people who have an abortion already have a kid, but they can't afford another one. And they're coerced by circumstances. That's not appropriately pro-life, and that's not even appropriately pro-freedom. That's that's a horrible choice. That's a choice of giving a vegetarian a choice between chicken, beef, and steak. They can't actually have a choice and remain who they are, become who they are, realize who they are, right? So if you're giving people abortion as an anti-poverty program, you should be ashamed of yourself, and you're a barbarian, and you're a problem, right? So it's not an anti-poverty. We need actual anti-poverty programs. We need to make the United States, a place where people can have kids. and without paying a tax for having kids, right? Everything meaningful you should do without a family, you should be able to do with children. That's how we need to think about it. As in, everything meaningful you can do without voting, you should be able to do and also vote, right? That's why we should have polling places, please. So this idea that you get taxed for having a child is a kind of degradation of our freedom. So we need the quality of childcare policies. We need the quality of employment policy and job policies that actually take this seriously and takes this into account. So that's what I think. That's what I think we should do. And if you think of abortion as an anti-poverty program, that's really about we're a barbaric nation, right? And Rosa Luxemburg, and a guy wrote a book about this about 20 years ago, said that you could either go through an advanced economy, you could either go through socialism, or you can go to barbarism. And I think we might be going to barbarism. Right? I'm not a fan of that. I want real anti-poverty programs, and I don't mind, women having the right to have a medical procedure. But I do not like that as a form of an anti-poverty program. I think that's degradation. We just normalize the quality of degradation because those rich women do not care about the poor people. They do it as a power grab. That's why they couch this as men against women, when it's not really men against women. It's white people against other white people, it's it's white pro-life people against everybody else, including white pro-choice people. And Latinos are plus and minus because a lot of them are Catholic. But in general, like, this is the whites fighting other whites and everybody else. And we need to deal with the whites. And for a while I've been telling people, like, look, unless you take the white family seriously, unless you take the white religion seriously, you're not going to get all the fancy, nice little programs you want. That's what I said. I've told anybody who asks that, but they don't listen to me. And what happens? The white family and the white religion went and took away your abortion. I told you, the white family and the white religion is going to be a problem. We have to have an intervention about how the whites think about their life, about how they think about their family and how they think about their religion. And unless we have that intervention, they will just keep using that to sacralize all sorts of horrendous policies. So, good. So now let's talk about how elections have another saying runs that elections have consequences. Understand that elections have consequences. That's what people tell you after they vote for something, some candidate that you didn't like, and then that candidate you didn't like does something you don't like. Elections have consequences. And you know what else has consequences? Electoral fraud, right? So I'm one of those people, and I think if you're watching this, you might be one of those people too, who remembers 2016 and who remembers Iowa and who suspects that Bernie won Iowa. I know I have people on the ground who I trust tell me that Bernie won Iowa. And I think Bernie won Iowa in 2016. Yeah, and I think the Democratic Party threw it to Hillary Clinton because they thought it was her turn, right? The Bernie blackout. Everyone remembers that. Well, we can't talk about him. I would say nice things about him or say competent things about him on any sort of news program. It turns out that guy wouldn't have lost Wisconsin, right? So we sent up the only person in America who would have lost to Trump to go lose to Trump because it was her turn. And I hope you thought that was very feminist of you. I hope your pantsuit was worth it. I hope your pantsuit was worth it. Wearing your pantsuit on election day to vote for your woman president. I hope it was worth it. Because elections have consequences and election fraud have consequences. And I will tell you right now, it's a little bit horrifying to seeing some of these Democrats who actually don't have any respect for democratic processes. Like, they don't care. They think, well, the Republicans do it, so we have to be just as bad as they do. So they will cheat. I do not trust company Democrats counting votes alone in a room. I do not trust them because they're crooks. They'll wear their little pantsuit, get in a room, and they will stuff all of the ballots. Like, they're crooks, and they'll just like give themselves an excuse legitimizing why they should be crooks. So, yeah. So I think the DNC threw Hillary Clinton the election, and then election frauds have consequences. You deserve it, in a way. Unfortunately, those consequences, like all consequences in America, will disproportionately affect black people. But, elections have consequences, and election frauds have consequences, and you should have sent up, you shouldn't have cheated Bernie. Like, you shouldn't have, like, the party should have ran an honest primary. And Hillary Clinton would have, I don't know. All right, so election frauds have consequences. Roe should not ever be considered an anti-poverty program. We should have real anti-poverty programs concerning wages and maybe childcare stipends and a suite of issues that would actually support families. And then we would have a real choice. And then also, let me talk now about the Amazon election. ALU, I'm a fan of Amazon Labor Union. I think Chris Smalls and Derek Palmer are doing great work over there. But I don't think elections are where unions get their dignity, right? Unions are about negotiating the contract and getting leverage on the contract, and it begins and ends with a contract, right? The election's like the betrothal, but the deal isn't sealed until like you get down the line, right? So what weddings are to marriage, contracts are to like union organizing, and elections are to political organizing. So what weddings are to marriage, contracts are to union organizing, and elections are to political organizing. So what the betrothal or the affianced or the announcement is to a marriage is what the union election is to union organizing, and what the candidate announcement is to the political process, the electoral process, right? The election process. So we need to not get too excited about a promise ring. We need to get not too excited about the wrong stage in this development, because the real leverage is going to come at the contract negotiation, right? And so we need to think with me and let it be known that whatever sort of leverage can be applied to Amazon to get Amazon to the table should be applied, and that's what we should be holding accountable for. I actually think it's a political issue. I think we should be asking all major politicians, so what are you going to do to make sure that Amazon signs a contract? It's the second largest employer in the nation. It's got 1 million employees. 1 out of every 160 people work for Amazon, or 69 people. So we have to understand that it is a political issue in and of itself. So you could ask, like, it's on the level of clean water and stuff, like, what are you going to do to make sure Amazon signs a contract? Because, if you want to really improve the life of working people in America, that's what you got to do, right? That and make sure black people get reparations, be made whole, right? So there are lots of ways to fight the GOP. Voting for Democrats might not be one of them. You got to fight the culture war. You got to fight. The culture war goes all the way up through labor, right? It just stops at the ballot box. Fighting for Democrats might not be the best way to stop the GOP. You have to undermine the GOP kind of cultural sensibility in America, because we're a center-right nation. We're a nation that doesn't want justice for workers, or a nation that doesn't want justice for black people. We want things kind of as they are, with the standing degradations for workers and black people. And if you want to upset that, you have to go at the cultural formation of, the way white people think about their families, and the way they think about their churches, and the way they think about their religion, and the way they think about property, and the way they think about jobs. You have to go at the culture. And you go through the culture through cultural mechanisms, media, through schools. That's why I say vote for school boards. Send this video around. You don't just do it by electing Democrats, because you elect Democrats, and then what happens is that they capitulate to the same cultural underpinning that all the other company Democrats capitulate to, and you get exactly what we get, which is like crappy worker relations and injustice for black people. And actually, in some places, we're talking about an internal colony. Black people live in an internal colony. And like, we get to vote every now and then on overseers. Every now and then we get a black overseer. But we're living in an internal colony because assets are not dispersed throughout the community in any meaningful way. And by the way, if you want to disperse some assets this way, I could appreciate it. Go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50 a month, because I'm giving you the quality of insight that I don't know if you get anywhere else, except maybe Donald Glover's Atlanta. I think he's doing good work in Donald Glover's Atlanta. I think that's coming. Right? So I'm actually proud of, and by the way, if people from Donald Glover's Atlanta are watching this, you should invite me on your writing team. I'll do it. I might even do it pro bono. It depends on how I read the room. Because I think you're doing a great work, and I think I can help you even make it a little bit better. But if you appreciate what I'm doing, go to www.funkyacademic.com and kick in $5, $15, or $50, and I will keep doing what I'm doing. But the best way to fight the GOP might not be for voting for Democrats. The best way to fight the GOP is to undermine and throw your time and treasure and your energy to undermining like the cultural formation of awful white people. That means but they happen to share institutions with us that are kind of publicly accountable. So that means we need to take over their institutions. We need to take over our institutions, right? Our schools, our media, our Democratic Party, right? Because the Democratic Party only subsists because of black people. So we just need to. We need to take over the cultural institutions and control the narratives that goes into, we need liberation theology instead of evangelical Christianity, because evangelical Christianity, as it stands, tells white people that they deserve everything they get. It's the manifest destiny. It's a Christianity that wiped out the Indians, right? So it's a Christianity that undergirded colonialism. So we need a liberation theology that said that Negro from Nazareth died on the cross for us. He died on the cross for the poor. So, liberation theology. We need, new cultural institutions. We can't get rid of cultural institutions because cultural institutions teach us how to be free. But we need to change the cultural institutions. We need to reform and revolutionize the cultural institutions as they stand. We need to revolutionize marriage. We need to revolutionize church. We need to revolutionize schools. And if we change and actually attack those cultural underpinnings that are very comfortable degrading black people, then we will actually change the politics that will go downstream from a better America. And thank you for your time. I'm going to let you go now because my kids got home, and I love spending time with my kids. We got a soccer game today, and, got to do the music lessons and all that stuff. And I will see you next week with something different. I want to talk about risk again and how there's some things you have to take on your own. Thank you for your time. And forever, I appreciate you.